Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Just the mention of those words together makes me really excited. As a kid growing up in the 90s, one of the most popular television programs that myself and a lot of other 90s kids were exposed to was Power Rangers. What makes Power Rangers so cool is it's kind of doofy, because like the effects are kind of cheap, but yet it's kind of awesome at the same time. Having kung fu masters being these teenagers and using these magic megazords to destroy monsters, there was a lot to enjoy about the Power Rangers series, though in retrospect it could be criticized for how cheesy it could have been. See, what was cool about Power Rangers 2 was how there were multiple seasons expanding the Power Rangers universe. In the US, it started off with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then it moved on to when they had ninja powers. Then it was Space, and then it was Zeo, and then it was Turbo, and then it was Lost Galaxy, and it goes on and on for 27 seasons. But each one was unique in their own way, and usually introduced a whole new cast of characters that most of the time were pretty memorable. Now, I do have to say that my personal favorite Power Rangers series is Lightspeed Rescue. One of the main reasons why Lightspeed Rescue was my favorite was mainly because it was the first Power Rangers series that I ever watched all the way through, and the first one that I saw when I was a child. So I'm a little bit biased with my nostalgia blinds, but I do think that in comparison to some of the other Power Rangers series, Lightspeed Rescue does have some good stuff going for it. It's got an awesome Red Ranger, Carter. It's got a really strong supporting cast of the other Rangers as well. Plus, it has the Titanium Ranger, one of the few Rangers we've ever seen that is not a color. And I thought that was really cool, because he has his arc where there's this snake tattoo, and it crawls up his back, and it's gonna poison him once it hits his neck. So every time he turns into the Ranger, it gets bigger and bigger. That legitimately terrified me as a kid. So this particular series of Power Rangers had a lot to offer. And what else it had was really fun video games. Now, in today's episode of Hidden Gems, I'm going to be talking about a couple of Power Ranger video games, Lightspeed Rescue and otherwise, that I think are hidden gems on their respective systems. So let's start off with the first one. Now, this Power Rangers game was really the first one that I was ever exposed to, which is Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue for Game Boy. So this game on the Game Boy Color has a lot of good points. So you get to pick which level you start off, one for basically each of the Rangers, but you can play as the entire team. Now, you only control one Power Ranger, but if they were to die, you get to pick which Ranger you would start next. So what I would do is I would start off with my least favorite Rangers first to see, have them get through the traps and lose. Then I would play as my favorite Rangers, being Red and Blue, respectively. Now, the game, it's a side-scroller beat-em-up, kind of. So each stage is broken into 3 missions. The first is the rescue mission, hence Lightspeed Rescue, where you, as whichever Ranger you choose, goes through a bunch of traps, such as a burning building or a failing sewer system, to rescue people. So what you do is you have a series of tools that you use, whether they be your fists, a drill, a fire extinguisher, to get through all these traps to save all the people and exit the level before time runs out. The second level is always a fighting level, which means you go through not the same level, but the same kind of level. So if you were in a burning building, you would be in a building. Or if you were in a sewer pipe, you would still be in the sewer pipe, but not the same one you were before. So what you do in this one is you exclusively fight Batwings, which were the putties of the Lightspeed Rescue series. So you fight a bunch of these guys going through, as you did with the rescue mission, and you have a boss fight with one of the villains from this TV series. And it's a 2D beat 'em up, so with a little bit of maneuver, you can get by the boss pretty quickly. Now, instead of having tools, you still have your fist to punch, and this time you have your saber. And the saber is really, really cool. Because what I would do is I would save all my game energy, and then when I get to the boss fight, just unleash the saber, just destroy the dude. Now, in Power Ranger fashion, after you beat the boss when he's small, you gotta fight the boss when he's really, really big. So the final piece of every level would always be a Megazord battle. And who doesn't love a good Megazord battle? Megazords are one of the coolest things of Power Rangers, no matter which series. Giant robots fighting giant monsters. Oh, it's a match made in heaven. However, I do think that it's important to mention that the Megazords kind of fall short. Now, given the limitations of the Game Boy Color, it's easy to see why these weren't as enjoyable as the other sections. So instead of maneuvering, what you are is you're pretty much standing in like a line. So the bad guy would be here, and then your Megazord would be here. And you hit like A and B to do different attacks, a heavy attack or a light attack. And what you could do is you could charge for like a special attack, whether it be like head lasers or the chest laser from the Super Train and Megazord. And it gets really repetitive, but they're usually pretty short, so it's very forgivable because you're not playing too much of it. And given the limitations of the Game Boy Color, yeah, I could see why it's not perfect. But Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue is definitely one that I would recommend if you're a Power Rangers fan, Lightspeed Rescue or otherwise. It's a very enjoyable game, and it's a shame that it doesn't get as much recognition as it should. Now, the next one that I'm going to talk about is another Game Boy Color game, this time being another one of my favorite Power Rangers series. It's like my close second to Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force. Time Force is awesome. And so instead of being like Rescue Rangers, these Power Rangers go through time, fixing all these historical inaccuracies that are caused by the bad guys. So in this one, it's a little bit like the Lightspeed Rescue one, but it's a touch more linear. You can choose which path you go, and each path depends what level you go to next. And instead of having a rescue mission, it's just more like one longer side-scrolling map with the mini-boss and then the Megazord battle, kind of being the same as Lightspeed Rescue. They're more or less the same game, just with a different Power Ranger skin. But if you like one, it's definitely worth checking out the other. I think there's a lot of good to be found in these games. Now that's all I have for the Game Boy Color. But what about the Game Boy Advance? Now me personally, I only ever own one game. This is another one of my favorite Power Rangers series, Power Rangers Wild Force. So it's kind of like a reboot of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in a way, with the Rangers being based off of animals, what have you. And the game, I gotta say, is pretty good, but there are areas where it could have some criticism. So it has a 3D, like an isometric 3D grid kind of system going on, kind of like Sonic 3D Blast, but it's not nearly as clunky or slow. The Power Rangers look okay, but due to the limitations of the Game Boy Advance, I think it would have been better as a side-scroller. The characters don't have the crystal clear quality that other games such as Metroid Fusion or Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku 2 had in comparison. So what you do is you pretty much walk around, beat up bad guys, fight the boss, and then hop in the Megazord. The Megazord is kind of like the one for Lightspeed Rescue and Time Force. However, there are a few more attacks because the Game Boy Advance had more buttons than the Game Boy Color did. So, if you're looking for another Power Rangers fix, Wild Force is good, but it's even better if you got more than one person, because this one's co-op. So you could have 4 people with connector cables playing the same game together. But you gotta have 4 copies of the game, one of the many flaws of the Game Boy Advance. But that's not to say that you can't find enjoyment out of this game. The last Power Rangers video game I'll be talking about today is going back to Lightspeed Rescue, but instead of being on a handheld, it's on a home console. Not this one. This one's terrible. I'm talking about Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue for the PlayStation 1. Holy crap, did I love that game as a kid. So Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue for the PlayStation 1 is a 3D beat-em-up kind of, but you can see over the character's head, so you can see where you're moving. Now it is fair to note that playing the game now would not be as clear due to the advancement of technology that we have. But me personally, still finds a lot of fun with it. So Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue is not at all like the one for Game Boy. The plot of this game, it's, bad guys are attacking and then you fight them. What makes this one superior, especially to the N64 counterpart, is that it's a bunch of linear levels, so it's a beat 'em up, but there's no really room for exploration. And I think that's okay. It's just punching bad guys. And the level design can get pretty interesting. There's one level where it's the Super Train Megazord, but it hasn't turned into the Megazord. So what you do is you have to hop from train car to train car, beating up bad guys, and then fighting a boss on top of the train. That was pretty impressive, especially for the PlayStation 1 era. Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue for the PS1 is a very, very, very underrated classic. And the best part is, it's co-op. So you and a friend could each be a Power Ranger and go around punching bad guys and beating up bosses. Now these games might not really seem that much in comparison to the plethora of video games that we have today. But I think they're still enjoyable to the niche market of Power Rangers fans. Alright everyone, this has been another episode of Hidden Gems. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.